Good morning, everyone. My name's Lori, for those of you that don't know me, and I'm so glad we have this topic. It's near and dear to my heart because of my heritage, and it is about Low German and High German and the differences between how we're trying to keep the language alive in the central Wisconsin area. Okay, Plattdüütsch. Did I say it right, Don?
Yep, close enough.
Okay, sorry, you repeat it. But anyway, our speaker this morning is Mr. Donald Zamzow, and he's very active in trying to keep the Low German language alive in our area. He's affiliated with a group in Madison who is very interested. So I'll turn it over to you, Don. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Don Zamzow, like Lori said. I kind of got really involved in this back in the early 90s when we formed our club, the Pommerscher Verein of Central Wisconsin. I was the charter president of that. And around that same time, I was invited to sit on the Friends of Max Kade Institute in Madison. It's affiliated with the UW-Madison German department. And right off the beginning, I want to make a disclaimer. I'm not an academic educated in German formally. I have some things in here that are somewhat technical, and I have to give credit, not have to, I want to give credit to Professor Mark Loudon, who helped me with some of these things that have to do with how it shifted from Low German to Standard German over the years. So that's kind of what this is about, a little bit about our club at the end. And if anybody has questions along the way, they can pop in and ask them. I understand that when you're not asking questions, you should mute your microphone. And when you want to ask a question, I don't know, is there some way of raising your hands here with this?
Yes.
Yeah, you can. They can raise their hand. Yeah.
If you go to your, either if you have your picture out, if you're on their screen, you can raise your hand that way. Otherwise, down where it says on the bottom, there's a thing that says reactions. If you right click on that, there's a button that says raise hand, and we will also notice that. So either one of those methods would be good. Or if you're uncomfortable doing either one of those, you could just say, I have a question, and then we could let you answer it. Okay.
It sounds good. Okay, well, let's go. This session is called Plattdütsch, Low German, High German, when, why, and how. I move this thing up there. I'm going to read a paragraph. That's the only thing I'm going to read. This comes from Family Search, and it kind of represents what a lot of people experience or think about Low German. Some people became somewhat incensed when they are told that their ancestors spoke Low German. Their response is something like, my answers were good people / nobility or some such thing, and would have spoken good German. Well, Low German is good German. It is just a different language. Unfortunately, this language has the word German in its name. Perhaps it would be looked upon more favorably if it had a totally different name, one that reflected its long and noble heritage. But alas, in English at least, this language must live in the shadow of its more powerful neighbor, Standard German. Family Search. And I have heard this over the years many, many times, even when people come from Germany and we say we speak this, they say that's not really German. But it's just that they haven't been familiar with it. But if people come from Northern Germany, they will almost know what German is about. So that's kind of sets the stage here. You may have experienced something similar in your experience. Going way back, the Anglo-Saxons began settling in Europe and England around 500 AD. I'm not going to go through all of these, but examples of these would be the Frisians, the Saxons, the Franks, Thuringians, and the Bavarians, They all developed their own kind of language, but it was sort of a common, similar language, but they were all different dialects. And it was standardized within each of those dialects, but different between them. And the basis for these languages is another session by itself. Just suffice it to say that they were forming groups as they began settling in Europe and including England with their own version of like an Indo-European language. While the Frisians up north continued without big changes, about 1,500 years ago, sound changes called consonant shifts began spreading from south to north in the German-speaking region. Some changes stopped as they moved north. So this change began in the south. As changes spread to the north, some areas did not adopt them and others did. The use or non-use of these changes became the delineation of Low and the newer High German. What are these consonant shift changes? That's what the next several slides are going to talk about. And it's very interesting how this developed over time. First of all, what is a consonant shift? Probably the most common one would be above and below that line in Germany, very approximately, the word I, ich. In Low German, it's ich or ek, depending just where you are, but below that it's ich or ish. And what has changed there? The consonant K, as this started to move from the south to the north, was changed to a CH. And they eliminated the K and replaced it with a CH consonant. Almost all the way through, wherever you find the Ks, that was changed to a CH sound. That is essentially what a consonant shift is. And we're building up to what made up the bulk of the consonant shifts. Here's just some examples by different regions. And this wasn't always in the same area. There were different regions that adopted this at different times. So some of these moved further north and some stayed in the south. But if you look at number one, can you see number one on top there? And number two is Erdingen. The type is kind of small. And you see the number one near the top of the map. And below that, where it turns green, it's E. So even up there, certain regions adopted the shift and others did not. If you go down a little further, the green and the blue, the number two and the number three, in Low German, they continue to say machen for make. But in the consonant shift, where they changed the K to a CH, it's machen. And that word became machen, but they continued to say machen in Low German or in the original. Down below a little further between 3 and 4, the word for a village was Dorp. But there was a consonant shift with the P as well, and the P was changed to a PF or an F sound. So a village in Standard German being called a Dorf. So in Low German, it was Dorp. In High German, it was Dorf. Going down a little further to number 4 there, the Low German word for up or on was up, OP. But with the consonant shift in a Standard German, it was changed to auf. And last down, well, there's 2 more down in a very common one is dat. Almost all of you that know some Low German know the word dat is like wie geht die dat? How is it going with you? The standard German was changed to das. So it was dot versus das. And then way down on the bottom there, another example is the word for apple. In Low German, it's Appel. It's almost like English. And that's why they sometimes say that Low German is a cousin to English, more so than to actual German. And if you remember that original quote, it said it was unfortunate that it was called Low German because it truly is not German in that sense of actual German language. In standard German, it became Apfel. So those all came about as a result of certain consonants shifting to something else in these regions. So you can imagine this probably was kind of confusing, but you have to also remember this was taking place over long periods of time. Okay, I'm gonna move this thing around a little bit here. These were the lines that were kind of constant all the way up to 1945. You might guess what happened in 1945 when everybody to the east and the north fled to the west when the treaties were signed after World War II. Everybody and their particular dialects moved into the west, and things started to get very blurry. So as time went on after 1945, it's really the regions in the north, from Amsterdam all the way over to Danzig, where the shift stayed pretty constant, but people from the southern parts moved there and vice versa, together with the communications of television and so forth, the modern communications. These things kind of got mixed up over time, but these two lines, one was called the Erdinger line and the other one the Karlsruher line, were sort of dividing lines up until 1945 of same examples that I showed before. Appel versus Apfel, Mea versus Man, Euch and Enk. I'm not familiar with that. And then Ich and Ich above on the red line there. Okay, then there were multiple lines like I mentioned before. This wasn't a very pronounced line that was very strict all the way across. This happened within regions over time, and this shows where those regions were. So all through Germany, especially in the northern part of Germany, these regions changed as this consonant shift was put into place. So here comes the jackpot. It all really boils down to the famous PTK shift. Those are the three big ones that really converted Low German into Standard German. I'm gonna move this thing here again. Give me a second. Okay. The West Germanic PTK, in High German, the P was changed either to a PF or an FF. The T became a TS sound like the Z, and the SS and the K became a KH sound or a CH sound. So if we look at the words unshifted, one step below here in this area, you see the Low German. The word for plow was plug or open. Ship for shift English word for it was plow. You see the resemblance again between English and Low German is very close. Ploeg, plow. Open and ship, very pronounced P. After it was shifted, was changed to a PF here, flug, offen, and shift. This P was replaced by either the PF or the FF. Over in this one here, tung is tongue, and the English word is tongue. Low German was very close to that with tung. Once the shift took place in Standard German, it became Zunge. The TS sound replaced the T sound. Atten is to eat. Atten is not too far off of the English word eat. In German, they replaced that T with a SS, and it became Essen for eating. Likewise, the word for foot was Faut or Faut, depending which dialect you had in Low German. In English, it's foot. It's even spelled the same in English. So the Low German for foot is exactly the same as the English word for foot. But in German, they replaced the T with the double S sound, which became Fuß. So the High German or Standard German word for foot became Fuß. And the last one is the K. K was replaced with KH or CH. And examples, corn is like grain. English word is corn. It's the same kind of construct there with the K and the C, but it's basically the same word. In Low German, to look for something would be suchen. In English, it's seek. Very close again. But in Standard German, it was replaced with the K was replaced with a CH consonant, and it's suchen. So to look for something in German is suchen. In Low German, it's suchen. And in English, it's seek. Likewise, the word book in Low German and in English are exactly the same. They're pronounced a little different. Different regions in Germany, the Low German speaking regions would say Bauch, some would say Bock. But that's just little variations on the sound. But it's basically the same word as the English word book. Replacing that K with a CH in Standard German, it became Buch for book. So you kind of get the idea what we're talking about with consonant shifts. I had heard the term for many years. I never had a clue what they meant by consonant shifts. But those three basic sounds, when applied all the way across the language, made major changes to the, I think I can say, original German, at least the original language that the Anglo-Saxons had when they first came, began to be modified with these consonant shifts. Now, granted, I may be way oversimplifying, but the idea is to get the point across of how this evolved over time. And there again, down on the bottom, I got this information from Dr. Mark Loudon, who is the director of the Max Kade Institute in Madison, and also head of the German department down there. Okay, so let's go over here. I'm not going to go through all this, but these are just examples. I'm going to take this group of words up here. The word teed. Is that too small to see for you? It's on the top of the list there, right next to Hamburg. In High German or Standard German, that word became sight. The T was changed to the TS or the Z sound, sight. Water up here on top became Wasser. Schlafen became, to sleep, became Schlafen. Machen became Machen. Dorp became Dorf. Dat became Das. Apple became Apfel. That's a mistake there. Punt became Pfund. Likewise, down here, there's similar examples that we talked about earlier. Sight, das, sight, you know. So this again is attempting to show that this was not like a mass movement that happened all at once, but it happened in their various regions. Here, Knecht, down on the bottom, Knecht was a hired man, Knecht or Knecht. That's almost the same. Kind, and I don't know if this is in Switzerland, do they have say Kind for with the CH in front? If they pronounce that different or not, I don't really know, but that's down in the area of Switzerland. So this is attempting to show where they had that. And this was happening 400 to 800 AD period of time. So this goes way back. Okay. So what a consonant shift is, hopefully you have a better idea of what the consonant shift is. I said time to pause for a beer. I don't think any of you got any there right now, but this presentation, a version of it was made in the tap room of our brewery. And that's where our club has their Plattdüütsch sessions. And we attempt to talk Low German. We mix things up, and they have some beer, and then we order pizza in at the end. And we have a meeting every month. The first Monday of 1 month, it will be in Merrill, Wisconsin, at a diner, and they have a breakfast meeting. And the one we have in Wausau is at the Bull Falls Brewery Tap Room, and that's a pizza and beer one, but the content is essentially the same. It's maybe a little louder in Wausau. So what a consonant shift is how High German came about. One common misconception is that Low German is a corrupted High German, that over time people forgot how to speak and it became, words were dropped or changed, and it became a corrupted version of High German. I think you can see now that that's not really true at all. It is a very distinct language of its own. In fact, Low German has more seniority. It was here first. On a roots tour that we had several years back, we were way up in Lübeck, I think. And there was a big church, and they had Bible verses carved into the pillars. And the Bible verses were carved in Low German on the pillars. They were done way back around 12, 13, 1400. And like you already saw, it is a cousin of English. And if you travel to Europe and you travel to Holland, your ear wants to tell you, I should understand this, but you can't. But the sounds is very familiar sound. And that's because Dutch is actually one of the variations of Low German. It's probably the only one that has survived to today as the language of usage or common usage in the country. In most other places where it is spoken, for example, Schleswig-Holstein, they have a lot of Low German speakers, but as a second language or it's a language in the home, where Standard German is the language that they speak when they're out and about, whether shopping, going to church, or whatever. So there are about 17 or so Low German dialects. And keep in mind, these Low German dialects, none of them are dialects of German. That's another misconception. Many people think Low German is a dialect of German, which it is not. In 1991, the European Union looked at these minority language, and they determined that Low German, along with Wendish and Sorbisch and a couple others, were actually minority languages in their own right and were deserving of protection from becoming extinct. So a series of laws were passed at that time to encourage protection of the Low German language. They asked the media to include a certain number of column inches in Low German. This is in the northern regions. They put in things like if you spoke Low German naturally or from the home and you got in trouble with the law, you could actually request a Low German speaking judge. Now, I don't know if that's really holds through, but there was a series of things like that. They also encouraged Low German to be introduced to children at the kindergarten level, and it became like a requirement for kindergarten. This happened around 1991. If any of these things have stuck or remain, I'm really not clear, but when we did a visit to Greifswald, there were some teachers there, and this one teacher had her kindergarten class of, maybe 14 kids there, and they were actually learning and speaking Low German. And she was very interested to speak to us and to the children to see how it compared. Any questions about the consonant shift before we go any further? You have to unmute if you want to say something. Okay. Then
I just point a moment. I just point out that that you could just as easily argue that High German was a corruption of Low German. Low German was there first. All the way you look at it.
I never thought of that one. Right.
It's the High German, of course, is what is the language of television normally and school teaching and all that kind of thing. And the same is true in Switzerland. You know, Switzerland has its own version of German, but they learn High German almost like a second language when they go to school. And television is all mostly in High German. So anyway.
Yeah, you got a good point there. Okay. Then I'm going to move this thing down here again. West Germanic region divided by High and Low German. This is kind of how it is now, but maybe more correctly said how it was in 1945, because World War II raised havoc with these distinct regions that had their separate dialects. Many of the dialects still are spoken in home regions, but a lot of the people that live there, it wasn't their home region at the time. But the prominent ones are the ones that are in kind of that purple area on top, starting from the left, Niederdeutsch, Northern Low German, around Münster, Westfälische Low German, Ostfälisch, Hanover region, and Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. They have a slightly different Low German. We had people in our area in the town of Berlin and the town of Stettin up here in central Wisconsin that came from Mecklenburg, And the Low German term for Mecklenburg is Meckelberg. And we always kind of poke fun at them. You always poke at the minorities, don't you? The Mecklenburgers were fewer than us. And we always said they talk funny. They seem to add N's, the letter N on everything. And it was a little bit of a sing-songy sound. But other than that, it was exactly the same Low German. And there was a lot of fun with whether you were Mecklenburger or whether you were Pommern. Then there's the Brandenburgisch, which is the Low German around Berlin, and Mittelpommisch by Stettin, and then Ostpommisch. And Ostpommisch happens to be the dialect that is prominent in our home area in the town of Berlin and the town of Stettin. That's many of the people that immigrated from that region came from East Pomerania. And just below it, it doesn't show on this map, but just below that is West Prussia around Posen. You can see the city of Posen right over there. Posen and West Prussia and East Pomerania is where many of the people to central Wisconsin immigrated to. Then there's Niederpreußisch up on top, which is Low Prussian, and then there's a High Prussian. As I understand it, Prussia originated right up here in this area. It began way, way, way back during the Crusades. And they had knights that went out for hire, so to speak, and followed the armies, the Crusades down into Jerusalem, and they were a medical outfit. But so one way or another, the Prussians were involved with fighting and war from the very, very beginning, and eventually became all of Germany, the northern half of Germany eventually became Prussia, and it didn't really end formally until 1945, although in 1918 with World War I, it did to a large degree change.
Excuse me, Arthur has a question.
Okay, Arthur, go ahead.
You have to unmute yourself.
There's a mute down there, Arthur, if you can click that little microphone with a line through it. No? Well, if you find it, just pop it up and just start talking, I'll stop. All right,
Unmute.
you got it. You got it there.
Have I got it? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I'm curious about what motivates someone to go and move to changing consonants that way. I remember when, for example, when Jan Seiler came up here from Texas with a Texas accent and was really difficult to understand her sometimes. And something motivated her finally to begin to speak normally in Wisconsinese. Now I'm curious about what motivates somebody to move from Low German to High German, and what kinds of motivations were available to people who were keen on adopting the new, in a sense, the new language.
I
Does that
don't,
make sense?
I don't think they were conscious, or there was a conscious thing of moving from low to high, because there was no high. It was just in a certain region. Maybe it became fashionable, changed a particular, caught on, it was cool or something. And it sort of caught on with writers or whoever.
So it was social pressure in a way that motivated people to adopt the new.
Probably right, yeah. So
Well,
I
thank
can't
you.
know that exactly. Here's an example of a Mecklenburg version of the Lord's Prayer. And you can see the similarity to both English and Standard German in there. Unseren Vater in heaven. Now, heaven in Low German is pretty close to heaven, but in Standard German, it's Himmel. Heiligt west din Naam, din Reich. Reich is Reich or your kingdom, you know. Come, dien wil ske, your will be done. Op eerd, as in heaven. So you can kind of figure out, whoops. Give ons huut ons täglich brood. Give us today daily bread. And forgive us unsere Schuld. Schuld is almost the same word. There are, I should say, throughout High German and Low German, there are words that are the same and remain the same in both High and in Low. So Schuld is one of them. So as vergeven onze Schuldens und für uns nicht in Versuchung, man befree uns von evil and keep free us from evil. So that's an example of one of the dialects of Low German, which is Mecklenburgish. Many people through the years have always told us there was no such thing as a written Low German. That is definitely false, because one of the very famous writers or composers was Fritz Reuter, Reuter. And he wrote volumes and volumes of books. And our Verein, or our club, has actually got a copy of one of his volumes, a first edition copy of one of his volumes that a lady in Passawalk gave to us. She handed me the book the day we were there, and some of her friends were shocked by that, and they didn't want her to give it to me. And she said that she wanted the book to go to America. So we have it though. And it's written in a very clear form of Low German. And there is on our website, I'm going to get to this a little bit later. If I don't say something about it, somebody remind me of it again, about the written language, and in fact, the Low German language itself. And it has to do with, it looks like it is somewhat simplified from Standard German, which it is. But there's a German teacher by the name of William Storm, Herr Storm, who grew up like I did speaking Low German, who ended up becoming a high school German teacher. And he struggled his whole career, 30 years, trying to unlearn Low German. It was always in the back of his mind. So he says, I shouldn't be thinking of that stuff. I should be thinking this way. And then when we formed our club back in the 90s, he joined it too. And then we had a 6-week course at the University Extension in Wausau. All us amateurs tried to put together a curriculum for it, and we tried to cover Low German. And he was in there, and as he's in this class, one light bulb after another starts going on. And he concluded that all of the things that the tenses and so forth that are present in Standard German are present in Low German. But many people don't use all of that because the Low German wasn't really a technical language that required, you know, long, big words and technical explanations of things. But he was really amazed by that. So if you have a chance, he is on our YouTube page, which I'll mention later, and you should listen to him. He made a speech at our Low German conference. On that subject, by the way, I don't have that in my slides, but the people in Iowa, that they are primarily in around Walcott, Iowa, are immigrants from Schleswig-Holstein, and they were very active in Schleswig-Holstein Low German, or Plattdüütsch. And they had an international Plattdüütsch conference in Iowa. And the next year, they had one in northern Germany somewhere. The third year, they had one, we found out about it and we sent a delegation down to it. And we became involved with it. And that International Low German Conference has continued all the way through until guess what? COVID. COVID stopped it because first of all, travel and so forth. And there is some talk of reviving it again. It was just a wonderful conference because we got speakers from Germany and we had speakers from here. Anna Marie Jensen is one who was a professor and a native Low German speaker there. And she published a book called Mijn Eerste Duizend Woorden. My first 1,000 words in Low German. It's a very nice book, especially for children if you want to illustrate what these words are. So there was a lot of good that came out of those sessions. This is something that we had a visitor come to our Verein, and he had heard about us, and he came to our Plattdüütsch to hear some sounds. And he was with, or still is, was with the Max Planck Institute in Germany. His name is Paul Hegarty. And he was there to listen to various of us say different words in our version of Low German. And I'm going to take you to a website, and the program opens up an app, and then I have to stop sharing and reshare it. So there's a little monkey business here, but I'll get there eventually if you bear with me. Hold on. Oh, there it was. And then I have to stop sharing. And then I've got to find the screen where it's on. Must not be there yet. This one here, share. You see that? You see a map there? You do.
Yes, yep, we see it.
We made it. We made it to somewhere in the eastern part of Germany at a language lab there. And these little rectangles are all samples of sounds of the way a word sounds right there at that particular region. So if I want to pick a word, I go here to the right and pick a word. If I want the language, Low German, I will go over here and pick Low German. Or English or Scandinavian or Frisian or Dutch. And then I can go over here, and if I pick the word seven, I can hear how they say that word like right there.
Neun.
Oh, this is 9, I'm sorry. Wait a minute.
8, 8, 9, 5. Negen. 3, 4, 5, 6. 9.
Lower Saxony.
9.
That's 9 in Bielefeld. so forth and so forth. Our particular way of pronouncing words is exactly the same as this region.
Neng.
There, that's the one. That's exactly how we say, that's how we say 9. There, but you can see all the different ways they pronounce the word 9.
Neun.
I'm trying to go to green. There's a little time lag here.
Don, do you think one of the reasons for the differences is just all the different changes in the borders in these countries?
Neun.
I don't think so. I think the borders are always political. And these regions aren't necessarily political. It's by the way that where the people lived, you know.
You also have to remember how isolated people lived in their own little communities their whole lives. Little travel, they didn't get very far, so they weren't exposed to the other forms of the language.
Kurt raised his hand here.
Yeah, along those lines, Jan. I was lucky enough to take a Big Ten trip to Europe, and we went through Iceland, and we stopped there to see the sights and sounds around there. But they actually spoke pure Norwegian, and the reason was because of their isolation. And so Norwegians, because they were influenced by other people traveling around there, and languages are not static, they're fluid and they change. So the pure Norwegian, if you want to hear pure Norwegian, you don't go to Norway, you go to Iceland. And you know, now like in the southwestern part of the United States, they've got Spanglish, where there's a mixture of the Mexican and English there. And again, there's all kinds of slang words. My neighbors had exchange students over staying with her for the last couple of years before the pandemic from Germany. They go to North Central Institute. And I tell these guys when I talk to them, I said, there's a lot of slang in English, because they keep asking me, what are they actually saying there? And I said, English, we use a lot of slang. And so you're trying to learn the language, but just remember, we play with words here.
Yep. Yeah, it's almost developing another language right there, huh?
Yeah.
It keeps evolving.
Yeah. Listen to the young people, you know, they're constantly introducing new expressions into the language.
And a lot of that is about, you know, you want to be rebellious. You know, you have your own clothes, your own music, and of course, you've got to have your own language. And if the adults don't know what you're saying, that's all the better. That's what they want.
Yeah. Okay. Now here's some examples. I hope you can hear it. I won't play all of this, but back in the 40s, the Max Kara Institute sent a guy by the name of Smokey Seifert up to central Wisconsin, and in fact, in different regions of the state, to interview people who spoke Low German and capture those. Then in the 50s, there was another German professor at the UW by the name of Jürgen Eichhoff. He is still around yet. He went from Madison, he went to the University of Pennsylvania. Or anyway, he went out to Pennsylvania somewhere. And so the Max Kara Institute has been able to capture and store these early ones from Seifert were actually stored on wire recorders. It was even before tape recording. And this is half a mile north of my home place in the town of Berlin. And this was a rehearsal of the Naugard, St. Paul's Naugard Church Band. Many of the North Germans formed bands in their churches. And when they'd have mission festivals or outdoor services or whatever, these bands performed. The guy with the, I'm standing by the arrow, underneath the arrow here, he was interviewed here, and there's two things going on. There's the guy asking him the question, that's kind of faint, but his answer is closer to the microphone. So I hope you can get the idea of it.
Wat moet die alles zegt. Hier nennen ze Amerika, nennen ze het niet, nennen ze slippers. Ik weet niet hoe men de Plattdüütsch neemt.
Ja, man zegt ook wel bij ons.
And the interviewer is
yeah.
asking him in German sometimes and in English sometimes.
Ze zien stuivelen, ze drekkig.
She has a new dress.
Ze hebben niet gekleed.
Yeah, new
How many
dress.
dresses has she?
Hoeveel kleden heeft zij?
The dress has a long skirt.
De kleed heeft een lange rok.
That blouse doesn't fit her quite right.
Ja, meestal blauw, dat is meestal een jak. De jak past daar niet uit.
She has a new handkerchief.
Ze heeft een niet gesnapt ook.
He uses only blue handkerchiefs.
Hij broekt plus die blauwe tasdeuken gesnapt.
Number 43. He goes in rags.
Hij gaat in lommen.
Get dressed.
There's some more here. I won't go through that, but you get the
Trek die
idea.
aan, wat men niet alles zegt. Trek die aan, niet alles
He goes
zegt.
dressed.
Trek die aan, zei
Ja,
I get
ja,
it. This was by Jürgen Eickhoff, and it was as recent as 1968. Esther Block was a homemaker, teacher. I knew her personally, lived in the town of Hamburg in Marathon County, and she was a Low German speaker. And I'm going to play the little bit of her talk of her interview. The question you don't hear, but the question was asked, were there Indians there or Native Americans? They didn't call them Native Americans in the 60s yet. And then she continues on with that answer, and she explains about how many there were in that area and so forth. I don't, do any of you understand any Low German? Well,
Not
it
much.
may be jumbled to you, but
Ah. Fred does. Good for you, Fred.
Ja, aber nur wenig, sehr wenig.
Oh,
Very
there's
good.
somebody else.
Efter vinters, den hade vecka vi är en bush vintercamp hatt.
the Indians had
Och
a
de
winter
hade
camp,
curve marked
and they made
för
baskets
elm, slippery elm.
from elm.
Och den hade sig de curve aufbrecht och hade sich då äten för tuscht bröd eller vad vi äten väs.
They made baskets, and then they would bring their baskets and they would trade for food. They would, I can remember we had some of them baskets at home, and we'd maybe give them sausage or whatever. And that's what she's talking about there, so I could continue here.
Aber sie hade öfters auch Hirschfleisch brächt.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes they would come with venison.
Ja, aber nur wenig, sehr wenig. Min fader sagt att efter vinters, den hade vecka, vi är en bush vintercamp hatt. Och de hade curve marked för elm, slippery elm. Och den hade sig de curve aufbrecht och hade sich då äten för tuscht bröd eller vad vi äten väs. Aber sie hade öfters auch Hirschfleisch brächt. Aber sehr viel Indier sind nicht väst hier. Gerade hier in diesem Town sind auch ein paar väst. Und die eine Familie ist sogar, die Jungs sind in der Schuljahr, aber sogar der Schullehrer, der hat Angst hat vor die und hat alles da, was nur kann, damit sie nicht in der Schule kommen Schule. Dann hat er Bang vor der Indier.
I don't know if you got that, but there was an Indian boy came to their school, and the teacher did everything possible to keep the kid from coming to school because she was afraid. And eventually he did go to school there, but you can imagine this, you were 14 years old, you would go to the Marathon County Normal for a couple of years, and then you were out in the country teaching school, elementary school, where sometimes the eighth graders would only be a couple of years younger than you. And the boys could be a lot bigger than you. So it was a different world at that time. Okay, so here's another. This is the hair storm on the left here. That was a
Yeah,
German
sure.
teacher, wonderful guy.
Yeah.
And he drowned in a deer hunting accident just 3 years ago.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Sorry to hear that.
yeah.
We had him at a German institute at UWSP one summer. He was a very delightful guy.
Yeah, he was. So
Oh,
that's,
yeah.
this is, I'll just play two things from him.
Good Tag. Guten Tag. Hi, my name is William Storm. I'm 57 years old. I'm going to attempt to give you the best rendition I can of these 40 sentences of Plattdüütsch as best as I can remember them. I'm going to have a little bit of help, though, from my mother, who is 81, and her husband, who is 87. So between the three of us, we have about 220 years of Plattdüütsch experience. Hopefully we'll come up with some pretty good renditions. Number one, in the winter, the dry leaves fly around in the air. Im Winter blazen droge blare rummen in the luft. Number two, it will soon stop snowing, then the weather will get better again. Dat hulp valt aan het sneeuwen. Dat wordt beter it's better.
Okay, then here's question number 3.
Good Tag ook.
Number 3.
Guten Tag.
Wait a minute,
Hi,
I gotta kill
my
this.
name is William
Number
Storm.
3.
There.
Number 3. The coals in the stove so that the milk will start to boil soon. Stek kolen in de oven. Je kookt het melkveld. 4. The good old man broke through the ice with his horse and fell into the cold water. De jarrekeel is durch dat ijsbrokken met zijn peert, o is het cold water vallen.
That was Ray Shield. And this is my wife.
Number 5.
This is me.
He died 4 or 6 weeks ago. Hij is 4 or 6 weken terug dood blijven. Or hij is 4 or 6 weken terug gestorven.
Number 6. The fire was too strong. The cakes are burned black on the bottom. Dat vuur was zo te stark. De kuchen zijn zwart verbrannt.
Number 7. He always eats eggs without salt and pepper. Hij eet immer eigen ohne zout of pepper.
Number 8. I was at the woman's and told it to her, and she said she wanted to tell it to her daughter too. Ik weet bij de vrouw, o heb zegt, o zij het zegt, zij wou dochter dat ook zeggen.
There you got some attempts at what we can do today. It was nearly not as fluid as it was years back. This is what I would encourage you to take a look at. I think I have to stop that share, and then I have to go here, share, this. Okay. If you go on YouTube and you do a search on Pommerscher Verein Central Wisconsin, we just recently opened a YouTube channel for the Pommerscher Verein Central Wisconsin. And when you have some time, some of these are real. This goes back, the one on the far right, Picnic and Bush, was it back in 1995, right after we were formed. And Joe Peters, a fellow from Germany who was instrumental in helping start Old World Wisconsin down in Eagle. He was here with a group of 30 North Germans, and they visited our picnic. And we had our little brass band playing there. I'll just play just a few seconds of it.
Alle de lui wat in Pommern woont hebben roetekate. Waar de Russen hebben binnenkomen en de Polish en die hebben moest weglopen. Die wonen nu in grote steden in Westen.
This was out in the woods. Not sure how I gotta get out of this. Oh. Oh, I forgot one other thing here. If you'll bear with me just a second. Oh, that's how it goes. And it was interesting, the comments we got on these sites. All of these are coming from Brazil, which is amazing. And they're written, a lot of them are written in Portuguese. And there's a community of Pomeranians down there, much, much larger than ours. And somebody talked about isolation before. These people still hold their church services in Pomeranian language, and they want to establish a connection with our Verein up here and their group down there in Esperanto Santos or something like that. It is in Brazil. So we had a whole bunch, 334 views of that particular video. These two guys here, or this is Herr Storm. Here's the one. If you go there, you can listen. I don't want to take up the time here. Bill Lopno is a very fluent Low German speaker who was speaking at that Platt conference, also very good to listen to. And here's a short clip that was made by NDR. NDR would be the equivalent of our PBS in Germany, and it was, they came here, they discovered that our language was alive, that is basically no longer there in Europe because Pomerania was taken over by the Russians at the end of the war. And so everybody that was there that spoke German had to flee. So they did a feature-length film for the German audience. And this is a clip.
Not long ago, Rita Levi Montalcini celebrated her 103rd birthday. And then
Dit schmucke is Bill Opfuss, een echte Pommersche Hof, wo sie jümmers Pommersch schnacken. Hier leeft Bill sein Brauer Meinhard. Er hat de Hof damals kriegen und passt op, dat de Pommersche Tradition wiederlebt. Und de Pommersche Sprach.
Meinhard, moin. Ja, na, wo geht? Wo geht die das? Guten Tag.
Guten Tag, wo geht die dat, der Röd?
Ja,
Ja?
sehr ja.
Okay.
Ja, kommen wir in. Ja,
Okay,
wunderbar.
wie waren das da?
Oh, dat kan ik nog goed verstaan.
Nou, is dat ook organic hier? Dat
Is-
Wort da?
Is that organic?
Ja.
No, dat zit zo goed.
Mit der Orten Gröt.
Dat is natuurlijk.
Ja?
Natuurlijk, ja.
Habt ihr früher als junge Kerle auch hier in Storm?
Wir haben dort öfters gespielt. Wir haben nicht schwimmen.
Warum nicht?
Ja, ich kann nicht. Ich kann nicht schwimmen.
Ach.
Ich habe niemals leren.
So this is real recent. This was just the last couple of years. These two brothers, when their parents died, they made a little pact between each other that even though their parents were both gone, whenever they spoke, they would continue to speak the Low German that they spoke all the while. And he is very fluent, and he just lives a few miles out of Manitowoc. So I'm going to get out of here. I don't want to take any more time with that, just that I can direct you to this YouTube site. And I can stop sharing that. And go back to the session right there. Okay. And we're almost done here. This is an example of what's happening right today too. This is Landkreis Rothenburg. This is up in the north there. And they had plastered these posters all over about COVID in Plattdüütsch. So if you look at this one here, it says, nicht te opstaan, don't stand together close. Blijf te huis, stay at home. Immer handen waschen, always wash your hands. Den dokter aanroepen, nicht hinlopen. You call your doctor, don't go running over there to him. Hostend und niesen in arm. Cough into your arm. Nicht antworten beim good dag zeggen. When you're saying good dag or hello, don't touch the person. And be favor and hosten blief te huis. If you got a cough or fever, stay at home. Wie dat hin, jederin kijkt naar den ander. If you do this, everybody look out for everybody else and we'll be okay. So this is very current. So Plattdüütsch still lives today. So today we learned the origins of Low German, the main differences between Low and High German, how High German came to be, about consonant shifts and their role in changing the language, attempts at documenting and preserving the Low German in central Wisconsin, status of Low German today, number of central Wisconsin speakers declining with the passing of the third generation of immigrants. I'm the fourth generation, and I think my wife and I are probably of that generation that is living around here. It's probably the last ones. Increasingly here, secondary schools are even dropping standard German from their curriculum, which is very disgusting to me, why they would be doing that. Declining speakers in Germany as well. However, there are attempts to preserve it with kindergarten classes, some legal requirements, and organizations such as ours. They have that over there too. They're called a Landsmannschaft. We do not know the extent of Low German knowledge in the Pommerscher Verein Central Wisconsin. Other access to our Pommerscher Verein, this is our website, pvcw.org. And we have a lot of good stuff on there. This is all stuff about language, spoken, written examples, videos, customs, our Pommern choir. We've got that brass band that you heard a little bit of. Stories people are turning in, and then we publish them. This is a series of 8 letters. A guy couldn't speak English, only Low German, and he was in the Civil War, and those are letters that he wrote home to his wife, giving her instructions of what to do. Genealogy projects, pedigree charts, so forth. German Research Center, immigrants. immigrant gallery, towns of origin. Here we have collected over the years by family name and the county or town that that family name originated in, and who the member was that they are a relative of. And then we've got a library. We're fortunate enough to have a professional librarian in that put a catalog together that meets the standards of any library. Talk about tours. We also have made available Myers Ort. And I remember years back going down to Milwaukee, flipping through reels of microfiche to find something. And now you just go to Myers Ort and you put in the name of a town. I don't know if you see this or not. You see
No,
anything?
Don, no, we don't see it.
Okay, I'm not going to take the time to do it. But anyway, here's a map of that region and it shows that town. The German words that were in the Myers Gazette and so forth, and you can click on that. It says it's a village. It was in the Kingdom of Prussia, province of Brandenburg, region of Frankfurt, under Oder, and so forth, and how many Protestants lived there, how many Catholics lived there, and how many Jewish people lived there. That's all available at a fingertip now. There's I don't know how many hours of work they put in doing that.
Don, I was wondering if you'd be willing to share this PowerPoint that you went through today. If you could just send it to Ann or to our central mailbox, and we could send it out to members if you'd like.
Yeah, well, there's, you mean, there's two ways we could look at that. Get out of here. This is being recorded.
Correct.
We're going to, if we're successful in it, we're going to try to publish it on our Verein YouTube channel, along with those other things. But if you want, I can run a PDF of the printed version, and then I don't know who down there would intercept it. Who is our tech guy down there?
Well, or if you just send it to the email that we sent to you, I'll send you an email and just request you to send the email back with the PDF, and then we'll make sure that it gets out to members, okay?
Yeah. Okay, we'll do. We have a newsletter, that Pommerscher Blatt.
Well, we do a weekly thing. So, and then they also send out daily information. So
Wow.
we would put it out because you had a lot of good information in here, and people may want to go back and peruse it, and people that weren't here may want to just look a couple things up if it's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine. And then we're going to finally establish a Facebook page for the Verein, because as the people pass on, new people aren't joining, and you got to figure out a way to get to people that would be interested in the language and in genealogy and some of the subjects that we have. This is a little survey we put together about competency in Low German by our members. I heard about it. I heard it spoken as a child. I understood it. It was used as a main language. I can speak it. I know nothing, you know. And again, I want to acknowledge the help from Mark Loudon, who gave me the information for the consonant shift stuff. The consonant shift stuff is basically the essential difference, or what Low German is and how High German evolved from that. Haggerty from Max Planck, Family Search and Wikipedia. And that is it. So,
Any questions, anyone?
Yeah, that's a lot to take in. I thought I knew a little bit, but evidently I know nothing. So
Yeah.
that's very interesting. I enjoyed it. I hope everyone else did. So
Yeah, if
any
there's
Thanks
questions?
very much. Dad,
Any
you had
questions?
said we should remind you about the Low German as a written language real quick.
Oh, yeah, there are actually courses that you can take if you want to learn how to write Low German, but a prerequisite for that is I guess you got to be able to speak it first if you want to write it. But the point being that it is a written language, and that's where you start to see the real similarities between Low German and English. And this reason for that is in the 1500s, the Hanseatic League was the main organization of commerce in northern Germany. And there was a bunch of cities called Hansa cities, Hamburg, Lübeck, Stockholm, Oslo, all around that rim. And the common language, and there was a city in just east of London as well. All of those Hansa cities, the people who did their commerce spoke in Low German and they wrote in Low German. So it was really an active language back at that time. And then when the sailing ships sort of came to the end and went into other kinds of commerce, then it retreated into the countryside.
Is there a literature of Low German, with plays and poetry and all that?
Yes, there is.
I would think so. Yeah.
Every time that we went to, we had 6 Roots tours with our Verein where we went to Germany and toured through there, and we were invited by clubs like ours to come. Almost every time they would put on a skit for us.
Mhm.
And, jokes have a hard time translating into another language. And some of our members were not so great at understanding the Low German, and some would roll on the floor laughing and others have a dead stare on their face, But there is a lot of literature in Low German available. We have quite a few books in our Verein that are written in Low German as well. We, in our international plot conference, a guy from Altos, Michigan, put together an American version of a dictionary, sort of Low German to English, because almost all the dictionaries are Low German to Standard German. There's very few that are Low German to English. Okay. Well, thank you very much for
Don,
listening. Yeah.
Don, I don't think you should leave without telling us who your guests were and where they're from.
Today?
Yeah, weren't your daughters here?
Wow, who is all on there? I don't know. Jane, I know you're there. Is Katerina, are you on yet? Oh, she must.
Oh, maybe she left.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's here.
Okay, well, is she?
Yeah,
I didn't
she's here.
look.
She just waved.
Those are your daughters, huh?
No.
Fun. Great. Glad they were here.
Granddaughters.
Oh, granddaughters. Okay.
I'm Don's
Wonderful.
daughter, and then my daughter is in Marburg, Germany.
Oh, wonderful. And a semester year abroad or something?
Yes, studying
Excellent.
abroad. Mhm.
Great.
Or more than a semester. She's living there and she's doing her master's in,
Wonderful.
she's doing a master's in a subject, but in the German language. So she's really not there to learn German.
Wow.
Had a big struggle to get qualified to be able to do it.
I'm sure.
Once again, Don, thank
Yeah.
you so much for taking the time. It's greatly appreciated. Life appreciates it. Our members appreciate it, and very interesting subject, especially for me.
Yeah.
Like I said, Jane, you look like you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
How do you say vielen Dank in Low German?
Oh, feeling drunk, yeah.
Vielen Dank.
Vielen Dank. Okay, well, vielen Dank.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
And then somebody's going to send me an email. Who's
I
gonna-
did that already, Don. It just got sent.
Okay, then I'll print out a PDF of this and send it back.
That sounds good, and we do appreciate you taking the time to do this for us. It was excellent, and the PowerPoint was so informative. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Ja.
Bye.
Auf Wiederschauen.
Auf Wiederschauen.
Hallo, it's Wiedersehen.